Okay, so I will talk next a little bit about your rights and responsibilities in this arena, and then Kathy is going to talk about, from the point of view of the counties, which is a very varied group, as you know better than I do, what's going on the anti-fraud stuff, the position that they're in with rules from the state, any differences between their county activities and district attorney activities. And Michelle's going to talk about the role of the public authorities, what's going on in her county, any role that the public authorities and the advisory boards can have. And then we're going to take questions. So we're going to try to each speak for no more than 5 minutes, so we'll leave time for you. But if nobody has any questions at the end, we'll keep going. So I'm going to have K.Keeslar start off, and she goes back further than I do. She's been doing IHSS advocacy before I ever heard of IHSS. So, Karen, thank you, and how about if you start?
acknowledges that they are providing services to a consumer how to go about getting the criminal background check done, and that they will cooperate with state and county staff to provide the information necessary for the assessment or evaluation of the case, that the provider understands program expectations and is aware of measures that the counties can take and the state can take to enforce program integrity, and that they understand that failure to comply with the rules of the program may result in them being completely terminated from the program. There are also new anti-fraud, as the governor calls it, provisions taking effect on April 1st of this year, 2010, where the counties are supposed to have consumers be fingerprinted, so that when a social worker goes out to do the initial assessment for a brand new case, that they would have to take the fingerprint of the consumer, and then when they are going out to do reassessments and the same occurs, that they're supposed to obtain the fingerprint. There are exceptions, so that any individual who is a minor or is physically unable to provide fingerprints due to amputation or other physical limitations, that they're exempt from that fingerprinting requirement. We just learned when the governor introduced the budget, or I say that the broad stakeholder community, Kathy made comments about when the counties knew, but the administration is indicating that social workers will go out with an ink pad and with a card to get the fingerprint, and in addition, that social workers will carry a Polaroid camera with them to get a photo of the consumer, which I think is pretty bizarre. I wasn't sure that Polaroid cameras were even still being made. There are timesheet changes that are being made in the future, so that starting July 1, 2011, before a worker turns in their timesheet, the timesheet will have a place for a fingerprint of both the provider and the consumer. And the next area deals with unannounced home visits. The statute says that counties are required to perform as appropriate and in targeted cases unannounced home visits to verify that consumers are actually receiving the services. Now, the statute also says that the Department of Social Services was to work with county welfare directors and the stakeholder community to develop protocols for follow-up visits and other actions if the provider and or consumer are not at home when the initial home visit took place, and that the protocols include information being sent to the consumer's home regarding the goals of the home visit, including the county's objective to maintain program integrity by verifying the receipt of services, additional follow-up attempts to have another unannounced home visit occur, and then phone calls to both the consumer and provider if necessary. Now, also on unannounced home visits, the State Department of Health Services, they believe that they have authority under pre-existing statute to do unannounced home visits. And so we know that the State Department of Health Services is already sending out investigators